Welcome to the September meeting. How does summer go so fast? Here we are back inside, but thanks for coming. We will start by approval of the August 24th board meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look? Any additions, deletions, or corrections? If none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And it's been moved and seconded that we approve the August 24th board meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I neglected to mention that Michael Klitzing is not with us tonight. He is in Baltimore, coming back late, so should have noted that. Okey doke. Treasurer's report. Are you good to go?
I'm good, yes.
Mr. Lemonade?
Yes, ma'am. $23,889 in income for the month of August. $103,778. Most notably, weed treatment, insurance payment, consulting engineer, and then salaries. So with that, if there's no discussion, I would accept a motion for approval of the report of claims for August.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. I guess I got to go over the 29th. No, actually, that should be the 2020 budget.
2020 fees discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2020 fees discussion. You know what? I was going to give that to Michael.
I can take that.
Okay, thank you.
There's really, what we talked about at the last meeting, there hasn't been any change in numbers. The biggest thing that we were discussing was the potential differentiation of wake boats and ski boats. We did some calling around to the few public lakes that are not DNR lakes in the state. Currently, nobody differentiates between that. DNR just does motorized versus non-motorized, and Geist just does day passes for motorized or holiday ones. Through some of the discussion, I'm a little weary of enforcement, being as you have old ski boats that aren't ballast boats with wake towers, you have pontoons with wake towers, you have the jet boats. I'm a little weary of being able to differentiate and enforce a potential different fee on that.
Can I make a comment
Yeah.
on that? I agree with you. We've talked about this, and I think it's, if we raise the fees, it's not going to solve the problem. I mean, the problem is shoreline erosion. And there's, with the number of them, I don't know what you'd have to raise them to make a difference. It's not going to make a difference. Education. I think we just have to educate people. I mean, they'll listen, they just don't think about it. And so even if we have like a handout when we sell permits in the spring, just something, public awareness to get them to think about what they're doing. And if you have to have them stay further away from the shoreline, then do that. But so I would rather keep the fees even and then go through education.
Yeah, and we're actually working on right now, we've had other complaints of fishermen fishing right on top of docks with people on them. We've got a lot of those.
They've been really bad lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually created a new online database for codes of conduct in the form with codes of conduct out of our statutes and the general stuff that we have that we're making everybody that passes through the gatehouse or pass sales sign and put them in there. That way they're actually notified of limitations on fishing, wake, noise ordinances, because excessive noise ordinances even in our ordinances. So it really kind of brings all these into a simple document they sign off on, and this will allow us to have all the boater information for even non-annual passes. Currently, if we sell a day pass, we just sell the pass and give it to them. With this, they'll have to sign a form at the beginning of the season, so we'll have their information so we can actually keep track of repeat offenders in that database, and on that it says that we reserve the right to deny entry, which we can do.
So
So I think that should help.
do you think, well, me as a freeholder, I'm not sure I understand what the rules are. So people fish around our dock all the time, so I don't know if that's readily available, but maybe we need it. Is it on our website?
It's
You
on
so
there,
that
yeah.
We know what we can say is, hey,
Yeah.
you should check your, way.
Yeah, there is rules and ordinances on that, but I think this document will bring that to the forefront, so it's easy to digest, and they're right there. So I think that will help out a lot with the
I'm sorry that
education
our
aspect.
chair's having a problem with the chair.
Adam, were you able to talk to the new police chief for IUPD, just to see about having that program reinstated where we could actually write some tickets and.
I have not yet, but I will be doing that.
I mean,
this
'cause
fall.
that'd be
Yeah.
another option. I mean, as far as the education part goes, getting back to the wake boats, I mean, if they're gonna wake, they're gonna have a wake. I mean, if they're gonna wakeboard or whatever they do. And so I don't know what education's gonna do, other than if you could convince them not to do that sport anymore, and I doubt that's gonna happen.
No.
So, I don't know, I mean, I guess, I was the one that kind of brought that up. I do see the enforcement problem with it, but, I mean, we could increase our revenue from it, I mean, you know, and use that to repair some of the damage
But
and
what,
so on.
are you saying it's the boat or if somebody's wakeboarding? Or like where, you know, cause I mean, we have a ski boat too, you know, that if you put the thing down, it'll cut, you know, make more of a wake. So how would you, I just think it'd be, it's like enforcing a uniform code. Oh, that's a collar?
Well, what is the rationale for the jet skis, professional, or personal watercraft? Why do we charge more for them?
I think historically, just because they're dangerous and relatively annoying.
Yeah, well,
I think that
I
was
guess
the rationale.
I would make the same case, at least the annoying part,
Yeah.
for the wake boats. I mean, to me, it's a pretty similar situation. It's you're calling out a particular use that we're not crazy about and want to make a few extra bucks off.
But they don't always use it for wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And we have to
Well,
say,
and not all
and
tower
it's not
boats
gonna
are
make
wakeboarding.
enough
Well,
money.
that's
right.
true, but you could also say, well, gee, I'm a safe watercraft operator and I'm gonna go really slow. You know, I mean, so, you know, you can't hardly set it on behavior and, you know, what we've done in
Well,
the.
are we saying as a board that we don't want people with, you know, wakeboarding or with those kind of boats? I don't think we want to send
I
that
think we
kind of
want to
message.
discourage it because look at, when we already have a ton of erosion problems and those things just beat the crap out of your shoreline. I mean, my shoreline's decreased by a few feet since I've been here over the last 10 years.
And you think
And-
that's a lot different than a ski boat or something? If you're going at a high rate of speed and you're throwing a big wake, you
Well,
think
high
that's
rate of speed,
different?
actually, your boats put out a lot more weight going at a low speed.
Mhm.
And that's what these wake boats are designed to go at a low speed, and they have the tanks in the back to make them sit down in the
Right,
water.
right.
And they go really slow when they put out a huge wake. You know, a boat that's going fast, you know, that's not a big wake.
And that's one of the things that I feel like would be difficult is how do I know what somebody could say, oh, there's no ballast in this boat, and I wouldn't know from anything.
I mean, you'd have to look,
Yeah.
and that'd be a pain for your
Well,
gatehouse person.
Again, how much money is it going to raise overall when you're looking at wakeboard boats? And are you talking about raising their like 100, 200? I mean, it's just not in the scheme of things. It's not going to solve the erosion problem, and it's not going
No.
to raise that money
Yeah,
To
I
fix it.
agree.
Yeah.
And that codes of conduct, it does
But I-
state, you know, you have to be at least 200 feet from the shoreline
Yeah,
unless you're doing
if we
no wake.
say-
So I think it's starting to kind of address that. I'm weary about the enforcement potential.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I mean, that would be difficult, but I don't know. I mean, we're calling out jet skis because we don't like them. I mean, you know, when it comes down to it. And I think the wake boats are causing a lot of damage and you know, providing or causing more headache in terms of our sedimentation.
Well, maybe we need to try education first, and if that doesn't get us any better behavior.
But what I'm saying, education is not gonna help. If they're gonna do that sport, they're gonna have a big wave. You know, I mean, the only thing you could do with education is say, don't do this.
Or not so close to shore.
Not
Well,
as
but
close to
I mean,
shore.
even out in the middle of the lake, you know, it just dissipates some, but you still get those big waves. If they're 100 feet from shore or 400 feet from shore, you're still gonna get those big waves. So maybe that's just something to think about. You know, maybe we don't have an answer today, but to me, they're in the same boat as personal watercraft. So,
Well, we could look at an NREC grant, I think I'm saying that right, the agricultural? Yeah.
NREC.
And the people that don't have riprap shorelines, we could assist those people, do a 60-40 split, and get those people shoreline riprap, and maybe go that route.
But we could use the income from this to help.
And I'm not saying, but you can't tell when a wake boat comes in the gatehouse, the gate people, they won't know. They won't know a wake boat from a speedboat unless it's a pontoon. I can tell you, my brother's got a wake boat, and all my fireman buddies have ski boats that can be wake boats. So
it's hard to know.
it really is. I mean, I think I would go a different way. I'd go education, and I'd go 60-40. Well, no enforcement, just 60-40, enforcement away from shore.
Right.
And then people that don't have their shoreline stabilized, then we look at the grant and maybe do a 60-40 split on those people, assisting those people with
Yeah,
shoreline.
but I feel like I'm
Getting towards it.
subsidizing.
I think that's a good
What
idea,
percent of
Mike.
our shoreline do you think is not
We're getting to the
stabilized?
point where a majority of the shoreline, at least where there's residential, is stabilized. I mean, it's hard to find
Yeah.
I
areas.
mean, I have
of
riprap, but it still is caving in.
Yeah.
And I have to go out there and throw it back, and I bought another truckload of it because it just, it's still, even with riprap, it still tears the heck out of your bank. Causes it to all slump.
But is it something specific to Lake Lemon, or wouldn't that happen to all lakes?
It happens
Yeah.
to all lakes.
You know, I mean,
Guys, most of houses,
Everything goes
guys,
downhill.
they have seawalls. Almost
Yeah.
every house that guys has a seawall. Wawa Sea is like a bathtub because it's of all the.
Right.
We have
Seawalls
some seawalls, I
are
think.
not a
Mhm.
good thing. That's just, just sloshes out water around.
Yeah.
But riprap is, that's.
And that's something where we could eventually maybe just, I mean, if there's nothing we can do or if education doesn't work, or we kind of come down on the activities, you can wakeboard and have a tower, but not having a giant wake, but when you see the ballast tanks going, it's people like wake skating and going so slow, I mean.
But I mean, as far as that
Slippery slope
60-40
zone.
thing, I mean, that's a good idea, but I'm feeling like I'm subsidizing somebody else's impactive behavior.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, make them pay for it, it's my thought. So,
I don't think it would pay for it. I kind of go back to Laura's.
Well,
comment.
it'll help
I don't think
pay
we
for
could
it.
raise enough money,
Right.
from that, so it's probably not worth the
I
hassle.
mean, even if we charge $123 per watercraft, that's not gonna give us what we need to.
Won't impact anything.
Mhm.
So, is everyone against the raise or the increase for the 2020 column? Like, for example, I'm a resident with a 10 horsepower or larger, my cost would go up $2. Are we against?
Are we
those?
voting
No.
on that tonight?
No, but if there's no changes, what we'll do is we'll have the resolution next month in
Okay.
October, so this is
Okay.
just for discussion.
I'm fine with it.
I
I'm
have no
fine
trouble with any of the rest of it.
Yeah, they're pretty nominal.
Yeah, we haven't
increases.
raised them since, I forgot last time I looked, it was like 2014.
Yeah,
was Last time I had
$1,
any
$2.
increase.
I mean, what was the biggest increase, you think?
Just non-resident stuff, jet skis,
Mhm.
and again, we're increasing the non-residents by a greater proportion, and those are generally most of the boats that we're after.
Yeah.
What made you keep the daily pass the same? I noticed you raised the annual.
Well, because those are in addition to the passes, so if they're coming
Okay.
daily, they actually pay the daily pass and they pay a ramp fee. So if you hit them on both sides, increases are like pushing 10%.
Yeah.
So in order to keep it
Okay.
reasonable, we just kind of raised the pass and kept the ramp fee the same.
Okay, makes sense.
Must be missing the non-resident ramp fee.
Uh,
The ramp fees are the same for resident and non-resident.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
is-
it's just the ramp fee, yeah. So daily passes, there's no differentiation.
So it's the same on a weekday or a weekend?
Correct.
Well, I think all the points are well taken, Les. I certainly hear you, but I think that enforcement of that could be a real sticking point. But I think we ought to reassess it annually. I mean, if it starts to be, we've got much more of these craft coming in, I think we'll have to keep having this conversation.
I think so too.
All right, so we are,
Yeah, we don't need anything on that. We'll
Anything
just, if
else?
there's no changes, we'll just utilize these numbers for the resolution next month.
all right, thanks.
I will make a point, though, if Michael's gonna be here next month and we're having the resolution to be signed and approved, there'll probably be a little bit more discussion.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to you again. You're like kind of the star of the show here.
It's Mike's meeting.
This is your
Yes,
meeting.
it's-
This is the.
Where's
Uh,
my
you would-
lemonade?
You would think you can have a drink and you get tested.
public-
It has a lemon in it. All right, June, July, August, this is my fourth reading of the proposed 2020 budget. So I will begin with revenues.
What's wrong on your agenda, by the way?
It-
Says
yes.
That one is
2019.
Yes. We've increased park admission fees. We're proposing a $4,000 increase there. Grants and donations, $5,000 increase. And dredging and riprap income, which I think you can pretty much say is going to happen because it's happening right now, $10,000 increase. So total revenue for 2020, $1,781,750. Wages. We're going to bring on a full-time dredging person, Clint. I think that's a great idea. So wages, $182,750. And what that'll do is that'll decrease our cost in the hourly and the seasonal employee. So $182,750 for wages, and then the total for seasonal and hourly is only $44,000 versus the $87,000 it was this year, for a total of $226,750. Supplies. Increased regular gas, $1,000. Increased diesel, oil, and grease, $2,000 for a $16,000 cost. And increased uniforms to $600. Signs and nautical markers, we increased $500. And for a total $61,900 for supplies. Moving right along. Services and charges. Grass mowing, we certainly believe that that's going to probably be about a $15,000 increase, $5,000 increase. Let's see, communications and transportation stayed the same. Where am I at here? Events, did we add events, $1,500 in that line?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And then utility service pretty much stayed the same. For the total of services and charges, $10,050. Okay, next page. Building and grounds, decrease of $5,000 to $10,000. Equipment rental increased to $2,500 to $7,500. Total of $30,500 in that category. We voted to increase our cumulative maintenance fund line 6610, $2,500 to $7,500, and I'll touch more on that at the end of this read. Dam and spillway repairs increased $5,000. Disposal site prep increased $5,000 for $15,000. The bond repayment will stay the same at $67,000. Increased fireworks cost to $8,000 from $6,500, with a total cost of $339,100. I spoke with Doug Baldessari today. I try to keep in contact with him as much as I can about what we're going to be trying to do next year. And I let him know, as our financial advisor, that we believe as a board, I don't know for sure, but starting in January, that we will establish a new cumulative maintenance fund. That would be a new fund. So we can keep the fund at 6610 here, but then we would, instead of just having one general fund, we would have two funds. We would have a general fund, as I'm reading here, pardon me, and then we would have a separate cumulative maintenance fund, which would be taxed. And so if there's any more discussion on that, I can answer those questions. It's 3 cents per $100 of assessed value is the cost to all people in the Conservancy. It's money we're leaving on the table right now I'm hoping that
But you're saying that the timing would be,
is January 1 has to be voted on.
January 1 of 2020?
2020, but it will not take effect till 2021.
Okay, so we don't have that budget in here.
That is
for
correct.
revenue. Okay.
So,
Okay.
and the deadline is April 1st, 2020.
Okay.
To approve it.
Yep,
Okay.
all right.
So, the only thing, you wanna take questions later?
No.
I was just gonna mention that we kinda had a communication just about this debt service repayment, you know?
I got the answer to that.
Good. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
I can do that at the end, is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine.
All right, he is very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable, we got a good man there.
Mhm.
Okay, so that takes care of services and charges, okay? And then we'll go to capital. So I think the only thing we changed in capital last month was the off-road truck. We added $200,000. Sediment mitigation remains the same at $950 for a total of $1,150,000. And then we have some gatehouse repairs for $30,000. So total capital expenditures, $1,180,000. Total expenditures report, sounds like a big number, $1,807,750. And that'll conclude my fourth read of the 2020 budget.
Mike and Adam, do we have a sense of the timing of the purchase of that off-road truck? And the only reason I'm asking about that is because does that affect our supplies and gas and all that kind of stuff that, you know, potentially?
Not, I mean, the timing would be if and when we get the bond revenue.
Okay,
So we wouldn't be able to do that unless we got the bond revenue.
right.
And that would be anytime, I think they award those in June.
No, the start of it is July 1st.
July 1st, so you can apply anytime after January 1st, and then July 1st they start awarding, so.
Yeah, and he asked me, Adam,
So we'd be
go ahead.
toward the end of the year,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
Because the money has to be funded by December 31st.
So this will be an SRF bond?
Yes.
And have we sent the SRF our preliminary engineering report?
Yeah, so we did that last year, and we utilized the sediment study from Shrewsbury, and they accept that as a preliminary engineering report.
Okay.
So we can actually go ahead and use that because it lists all the different options that we're looking at.
All right.
So we'll be utilizing that same report for the study come January.
Okay, so if everyone's okay with the fourth read or the budget, I'll go over some of the things that I talked with Doug Baldessari, if Madam Chair, you,
And that will answer Debbie's question.
well, we'll see.
He'll tell us.
So the threshold is still 1.3 million, but he said that could change. So I think that we're somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3. And
The threshold for what?
the bond,
The
bond.
an uncontrolled limit, the uncontrolled limit. Yeah, we go,
So we could go to 1.3.
that's what he's,
Maybe.
yes,
All right.
Maybe
yes.
a little less.
Yeah, maybe a
Okay.
little less.
They would have to recalculate.
That is correct.
Okay.
When he says it could change, does he mean up or down?
Typically, it'll go down with the amount of gross assessment. Okay?
Okay.
They take the gross assessment of the property in the Conservancy District, and then they do calculations, and then they come up with this number. Okay?
Okay.
And so the SRF right now currently, and what he proposes would be next year would be 2% flat rate. And he said that's a subsidized interest rate program. And I did not know what that meant. So I said, what is that? He said, well, that's a AAA rated bond. There's limited money in it. And you're on a priority list. Of course, priority lists are schools and sewer systems and things like that. They have priority. So we either get on that list and we get picked on that list, or we don't get picked, we go into what's called a pooled fund issue.
Right.
And that becomes a 2.5% interest rate. Not really
Yeah.
that bad of a,
I seem to recall them saying they sort of figured that we'd be a low priority.
Yeah, they
You
did.
know, I just
We'll
wanted,
probably be
you
in that
know.
pooled one.
Yeah.
this is why he says, I want you to get started early. So I told him we'd probably be talking in April or May, or
Yeah.
sooner.
Or sooner?
So, which is why he asked me, he called it a PER. He goes, did you send your PER in, preliminary engineering report? And I'm glad to hear that that's been sent in. So let's go over some numbers, just a 5, 7, and 10-year bond. And I'll do this really quickly. A 5-year, I did 1.2 million. I stayed low. 5-year, 1.2 million is a $21,000 a monthly pay, okay?
At the 2% or the 2.5?
This is 2%,
Uh-huh.
5-year, 21,000 a month, 252,399 annually, that we would be budgeting for in 2021. If we went with a 5-year payoff. Okay?
Okay.
At 2.5%, it's 21,296 a month, 255,561 annually. Now, if we get the bond in July, that's not going to be our payment for 2020. Would be half that, because you would just calculate your monthly payment times 6 months.
Right.
Okay. 7-year. I can give this to you if you
Yeah.
want. It's just my staffing report
Right.
for last day. I'm a tree hugger. So anyway, 7-year bond at 2%, 15,320 monthly, 183,851 annually at 2%. 2.5%, 15,586 monthly, 187,043 annually. 7-year bond. 10-year bond, 2%, 11,041 a month, pardon me, and 132,499 annually, 2%. 2.5%, 10-year bond, 11,312 monthly, 135,749 annually. You can all do this on calculatestuff.com. All right?
Do you have the 20-year there?
Yeah, do you have the 20-year? We
I-
didn't think about 10.
I can do it with my phone. I can do it
Okay,
with my
because
phone.
I think, is SRF, is it only 20-year, or that's just the maximum is 20-year for repayment?
Well, and this was based on discussions with you, Adam, and other members, that we think that we're gonna revisit this in 5, 7, or 10 years and not 20 years.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't even consider a
The 20.
20-year payoff. I thought the max would be a 10-year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
that's-
think, I agree with that.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Hmm.
So,
Does that answer your question, Debbie, about your question was about the monthlies, if I remember?
I can look it up
correctly?
real quick.
Yeah, I mean, it just raises another issue, a broader issue, like where's that money gonna come
Yeah.
from? That big a bond payment if we're gonna try to pay it off in 10 years.
Right,
Like,
sure.
okay, well, we didn't have that kind of money in the budget,
Mhm.
so,
No,
that's
it was
why I
ba-
thought
it
we
was
were
based
on
on
talking
20 years.
20.
It was.
That would be
Based-
so.
Yeah, the original thinking was based on 20,
to begin with.
but knowing that we're relatively certain at this point that whatever we do won't last for 20 years,
We have to reconsider.
we're gonna have to reconsider how we finance the effort.
And it'd be real simple to calculate it on that website if you want to write that website down. It's calculatestuff.com. It's
Calculate stuff, it's really called that?
calculatestuff.com.
Well, maybe.
I got-
Good.
We'll just have
I love
to
it.
revisit
Love
that,
it.
because if we did, I
Yeah,
mean,
we-
potentially, if we did the 20-year.
Calculate stuff for
at the
dummies.
lowest payment, if we could pay
Yeah.
more, we pay more. But-
Last chance.
Right. I mean,
Any,
I don't, yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm fine with, the budget the way it is, if we're just gonna have like potentially, you're saying we might have one debt payment or something.
We would be
I think it's
okay
a
in
bigger-
2020 to make
Yeah.
any of those payments because
Right.
it would be 6 months or less.
Right.
But I think when we start looking at 2021,
We'll have to have a different.
yes.
Right. So,
do you want to
just
entertain
raises a
public
bigger issue of
comment?
probably the SBC and probably the
that'd be fine.
portal kinda.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Debbie, I couldn't.
Probably your report in this and where you guys think you're gonna bridge a gap to get from 10 to 20 is really what the question is.
Makes sense. At
In a
this,
short-term period, a year.
I would entertain any questions for Mike, since this is fresh, as opposed to making you all wait. Does anybody have anything regarding the budget they want to ask?
Clear as a bell.
What's that? What did you say, Jay?
Clear as a bell.
Clear as a bell,
Clear as a
yeah.
bell.
May I say
Thanks.
something to the audience?
Yep.
They said, they tell me that I'm not very good at math.
That's why he's the
You
treasurer.
tell us.
That's why he's the treasurer. That seems.
I wasn't sure, but I believe you.
All right, all right, well, you've had, this is the end of it then, and we will adopt
Right.
it in October, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the manager's report. Adam, you're still the manager, if I,
All right, we'll start off with a bond, or You can talk.
Bob?
Barge operations. We've had a heck of a year so far. We've removed 12,519 yards to date. The highest record ever has been 13.2 in a given season. So I think we'll blow right through that, as we still have stuff to do in Chitwood and then private dredging. Of those, for the Chitwood channels, for zone 136, we removed 3,500 yards, zone 138, 3,300. And of this in Possum Trot, 10,766 of those yards has been dumped at Possum Trot. We did have the site reach capacity last week. We actually had a crane come out this week and put the counterweight on the excavator so they can move dirt around. So we're in there currently moving dirt to try to make more room to at least finish out the Chitwood project and some private stuff. For some of the private jobs, towards the end, we may and will likely have to utilize the Kenny Clark site. That one's ready to go and can hold a lot more yardage. But we're currently working in Possum Trot to make some more room, so we're not having to truck or barge all the stuff from Chitwood down to the west end. So it's been a really good year, and I believe we still have over 40% of the dredging, LLCD dredging budget in there. And if we complete the goals, and we could potentially utilize some of those funds for more private stuff this fall. So I think overall, we're looking pretty good within the dredging, both for numbers and for monies.
So is our dredger crew gonna be on then pretty much full-time going forward?
For this fall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we can, or as much as we can, yes. And I mean, as we, depend on the hours, we'll hopefully go through those, but we're looking really good this year.
That's good. That's good news. You say 40% of the budget's still left?
Yeah, for the LLCD dredging, we've already utilized about half for private, but once we finish our LLCD priorities, we can always do a transfer of funds and move some more of that to private to knock out more private.
Jay, did you
I
have
have
a
a question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Why, this year we're a lot better off compared to the last 2 years? What's going on? Why this year is so much better?
I think we got staff that wants to work. That's just the staff's in here. I mean, as much as we can, and when they can, they've been dredging. It's been a really good year.
Weather hasn't affected it, I mean, as far as that goes.
No, not too much. And actually, historically, a couple of years ago, even without the railroad drawdown, we usually hit a drought period in late July, August. So we're still within a couple inches of
So you're
normal
saying the
pool.
personnel's made a difference?
Personnel's made a big difference.
Equipment's running better?
Weather's made a big. Equipment's running about the same. I'd say our repair costs are about the same.
He says no.
It's older equipment. We've spent a little bit more than we budgeted for outside repairs. We still do have money for supplies for in-house repairs. So I think the equipment cost is about the same. We've just got more hours on the ground, and the weather's been really good. I mean, we really haven't had a rainy summer. We're not in drought conditions, so we still have deep water to get everywhere. I don't know, it's been a good year.
Frank, you had a question too?
We also rented a long-armed excavator, which made the pit hole deeper and the hill taller.
Oh,
So it
okay.
gave more capacity.
Yeah, we cleared that out.
Previous years.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I do have a question on clarification on the dump site being full. Did we fill the pit, or did we just block the ramp that slides down to the pit?
It's full, yeah, it's full. The ramp, the mud around the ramp is at the ramp level.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So the pit is not necessarily full, we just can't dump any more there because it's not sliding in.
Yeah, we can't dump any more off the ramp currently.
Right, so we need to push that in to make more room.
Yeah, and we'll see how much we can push in. We'll move as much as we can. A lot of that, once you get down low, is still just very liquidy. It takes, all winter long, a little bit of the springtime to dry out completely. So we'll move as much as we can, and we should be back dredging early next week, hopefully Monday or Tuesday. So that's been, I think, the most yards we've ever put in the Possum Trot site. So it's good.
So do you have a list of what the private dredging will be?
Yes,
And
I do.
have those people been informed?
Yep, I think everybody's been informed for the jobs that we have lined up. And along with that, we budgeted $20,000 in revenue for private jobs. We're already at $22,000 or 21 and change, right about $22,000 already through the season. So it's gonna be a very good year revenue-wise as well. So overall, it is an outstanding year for dredging. For vegetation control, we spent a total of $36,612. Of that, $28,227 was submersed, $8,385 was for Lotus. A lot of that cost has to do with weather patterns. We had a lot of late rain in the springtime, keeps the sediment stirred up, blocks out light, so we have a later growing season. So we only had to treat submersed once, and then the Lotus. It's good though, because we've gone over budget some other stuff with some of the surveys that we've done this year, the consultant engineering. So having that as a buffer will be nice to have that in the budget for when we move stuff between line items. So for the vegetation control, we're done for the year with that. Stuff started dying off as it gets cold. Next, we have the sediment transport study, and inside the packets was the memorandum that we received from Christopher Burke Engineering. I've had a lot of discussion with them on the phones, both with the Lake Health Task Group and Strategic Planning Committee. When we had them talking, it was just very technical on the modeling side of stuff, so what we're gonna do is kind of go through and just talk about the overarching things that we've learned from this. First and foremost, we're under the auspices in past years that we were receiving about 15 to 40,000 cubic yards of sediment annually coming into the lake from the watershed in Bean Blossom Creek. With what we're seeing with the bathymetric and the modeling, it's more on the range of 150,000 coming in totally. About 33,000 of that is falling out in the delta alone. That's the larger particle sizes, so your gravels and sands, the bigger particle sizes. The remaining stuff is silt and clay, which is very fine in nature and stays suspended. And what we found is that that's actually settling out around the lake relatively uniformly. So with this, what they've said is, as far as possibilities for trapping sediment, there's not much that we could increase with the methods of having a berm or essentially a 4-bay structure of that size. They said with staying the limitations of in that eastern bay, we really can't increase the capture of that size. And a lot of that was due because the fine silts and clays will stay suspended. So even if you do capture some or they settle out, the next big rain, big flow, any turbulence we have, it'll resuspend them and settle them out. What they did say is that we could potentially increase capture in the amount by opening up the old creek channels, which we've talked about doing. So we're still going to be spreading the flow into the existing delta, and we can capture sediment that way. So what they're recommending is that we focus on our targeted dredging, i.e. recreation and boating channels, kind of how we have done in the past, but instead of building a berm for moving forward, focusing on a large hydraulic dredging project. And the hydraulic dredging is really going to be the only way that we can remove a significant amount of yardage in a small period, which is why we're budgeting for that bond next year. Inside the report, we do have our annualized loading. We have estimates for
So they basically
stream flow.
conflicted what Shrewsbury said. I mean,
As far as as far as that item for building the 4-bay, Shrewsbury did have in there cost estimates, the hydraulic dredging potential disposal sites, but as far as the element of utilizing our sediment to build a wall and capture, they said they did not believe that's feasible. Both for maintenance and for size of sediment coming in. So they really kind of confirmed the focus on the hydraulic dredging area moving forward on that. In that report, they also broke down different areas in the lake so you can look at sedimentation rates throughout the different bays and throughout time, and they do have estimates moving forward of potential sediment load, which all do tend to increase at different rates. It kind of looks like a climate change modeling where there's 40 different sectors all kind of going in the same direction that you don't want to see, which is up. A lot of this, they believe, is due to increasing in storm intensity. Rains during the winters, we historically had snow, and what we're finding from this report is a large majority of the sediment is not coming from the watershed itself from the land mass, which I believe we kind of already knew that since it's majority forested, but a lot of it is coming from the creek banks and channels itself during these high intensity and during
All
these
around the
flows.
lake.
Yes, yeah. So it stays suspended and kind of settling out through the lake, relatively uniform. And really what they came down and said, as far as capturing the larger sediments, we really can't do better than what Mother Nature's doing, utilizing that delta there. So really kind of increasing the efficiency of that delta by opening up some of the old channels and
So it
allowing
stops it
and focusing,
and
and focusing on the dredging. Along with that, we have started having some discussions. It's gonna go flow right into the next one about potential properties and disposal sites. So one of the other major issues that we're facing is if we come in and do this, where are we gonna put all the sediment? So there's a couple different options on the table. One that we've talked about in the past is the overflow pond, utilizing part of that, a portion of that. We've had some initial conversations with IDEM about that. And I've actually applied to the initial permitting process to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to get that moving forward. They all prefer that we utilize land instead of filling in a body of water that's existing. So to that aspect, we did have a meeting last Friday with Mary Jane and myself, met with Vic Kelson and the environmental directors in City of Bloomington Utilities to discuss the potential use of a 10-acre plot of land on North Shore near the Possum Trot Creek, which would be a good plot of land and hopefully would cost us relatively just the disposal site cost if we could utilize that land. He's going to be going to his board of directors to discuss the potential use of that.
That's city-owned property?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Was that at one time said to be 14 acres? Is that?
I don't know.
There's two parcels right there.
Okay.
I believe they're between 10 and 15, but
Okay.
about 10 of it is unforested.
Okay. I think I know where you're talking.
Yeah, it's as soon as you go across the bridge, if you're heading west on North Shore Drive, it's right on the north side there. One of their concerns about that is about 3 acres of that land is above the floodplain, so they said that it's good, usable, buildable land. And kind of talking with them, my counter was, well, if we raise that entire thing up 6 to 8 feet, you'll have a 10-acre plot of land that's now buildable and out of the floodplain. So he's going to talk with his board and then get back with me about what further they need or discussions to have. So that's moving forward.
So we're not talking about purchasing it,
Not for that land.
right? Okay.
So another plot of land that came for sale on North Shore, which is directly south of Little Africa. South Shore, sorry. Directly across from Little Africa on South Shore is a 15-acre plot of land that is for sale now, and I've had some discussions with a guy who's working for a firm that bought that parcel and is selling it off. So he's had some initial discussions on that. Being a government, there is a process that we have to go through. First and foremost, we have to get 2 appraisals of the property, and we're limited in purchase price to the average of those 2 appraisals. Next, we have to do a resolution stating our intent to purchase the property. And I have talked with Terry, which is the guy we've been dealing with, and his investment company said they'd love to help us out and they'd be willing to work with us. I told him it'd be nothing quick, it'd be a multi-month process at the quickest. And he said, if we have interest in purchasing this, they would work with us throughout that process.
Yeah, who else might want
But yeah, exactly. So we're trying to move on that pretty
He
quick.
has 3 other bidders.
Yeah,
does
so he said he'd be willing to work with us. So the quickest we could ever do anything is October. Inside of this packet, we do have 3 assessment quotes for assessors out of Monroe County. There doesn't really seem to be any assessors in Brown County. There's different types of assessments that they can do, a form
Appraisal.
or
It's a-
narrative
they're
appraisal, a
appraisals.
form or a narrative appraisal. The law does not state which type of appraisal we have to have. We just have to have a certified appraiser do the appraisal. So we can utilize the lower costing appraisal moving forward, which I believe one's quoted at $600 and then the other is quoted at $650. So we're looking about $1,250 for the cost of the appraisals. They would have 30 days to get us back with that. They all said once we move forward, they should be able to get it in hopefully under 3 weeks. we could potentially resolve to purchase this property in October if we have those back in time.
Do you have
As-
any idea how much it is?
So they're asking, right now they're around 108,000 for the 15 acres.
180.
108.
108.
Yeah, 108 for the 15 acres.
I thought it was 1/8.
I thought it was 180.
No, it's 108. The 180 was for initial.
The original that included
Okay.
the property beyond.
Oh,
Beyond the
Okay.
railroad
It's
track,
swamped
yeah.
right now.
Yeah, so this 15 acre parcel is 108, it's right around 8,000 an acre. So what I would recommend is that we move forward and we just approve for these appraisers to go to lower cost for $1,250 to get these appraisals moving forward. It's an ideal location. I've had initial discussions with DNR and IDEM, and they said they don't foresee any hangups utilizing that area for a disposal site. It's also right now, somebody's been haying it, which is illegal, but it's a certified forest right now. And I talked with them if we could utilize a certified forest as a disposal site, and I guess luckily the people that were haying it kept trees from growing, so they said there shouldn't be an issue since they wouldn't be harming any standing timber on the property. And then even if we were to take it out of certified forest, since we're a government, there's just a form for that and it would be free through DNR, so we could do that.
So is it all available for disposal though? I mean, if I heard the word
About
swamp,
10,
that's
about 10
wetland.
out of 15 acres currently is out of the floodplain and would be available. Approximately 5 is wooded and will likely be a wetland, so I do not believe we'd be able to remove much trees for that.
Yes, sir.
Clarity, Terry advised me that we would be able to clear cut the half portion that is between the drainage ditch towards the field area and level that back off again and reclaim those 2 acres. And he has about a dozen to 15 hardwood trees that we could cut in the other section that's further west of the drainage ditch to offset some of the cost. So him timbering out the other area and leveling it, we would gain 2+ acres, and then do some selective timber would offset some of the cost as part of the site prep and development work. And that his method would also go through and take the root balls that are in the area that he clear cuts and put those in the other area to be a natural compost pile. It is not swamp, it is area that when it rains, it stays wet for a period of time. Right now it is dry. So
We would have to.
I live right across the street, so.
Yeah, and I want to give
Yeah, I
you
know
credit,
you do.
Frank, for bird dogging this is the way I like to put it, because you were on this, and your patience with this process is appreciated as well. But Frank found this, his sign went up, and he's like, calling the guy, so.
And so we will have to, once we get into site disposal, we would have to do a wetland delineation to see what we could and could not move for trees. We will be limited in that, but, I mean, if we get 2
But,
acres.
but
could
did
cut that
you
out.
say you can put it in the floodplain or cannot?
I believe we could, on that particular property, the floodplain really just barely crosses South Shore Drive on the current GIS
Because when you
layers.
were talking about on North Shore, you were talking about putting it in the floodplain. So they would allow you to do that?
I think it depends on the type of disposal that you're doing. If we're doing dredging, just the spoils from mechanical dredging and utilizing just a disposal site, you cannot put it in the wetland. We're limited to being 636 feet above sea level elevation. But on the current GIS levels, the majority of that property, about 10 acres, is above the floodplain. The floodplain just barely comes across on South Shore Drive there and then in that creek area. So most of it is out of the floodplain.
But on the North Shore option, you said quite a bit of that was in the floodplain.
Yes, yeah.
But you also said we could fill it.
I think we would be able to utilize that for a sediment settling pond.
Okay.
It's in the floodplain, but it's not a wetland. So potentially it could flood on a 100-year storm, but it's not a current wetland. So
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
think we'd have any issue.
Yeah,
with
I got the
that.
difference
Yeah.
on that. It just sounds like why would it be okay in the floodplain on the north side, but not on
Well, the
south?
south side is not in the floodplain. The GIS layers don't show in the floodplain.
Okay.
And then
It's
also,
wetland.
too, that I believe we would have to do, if we were to purchase the property this year, an additional appropriation. I've been talking with State Board of Accounts, and it's much easier than I thought in the past. It's actually, we just have to advertise 10 days in advance of a hearing or a board meeting where we would discuss this and pass a resolution. That resolution will then go on to the State Board of Accounts for approval or denial. I don't believe we would get denied because we do have the money in the bank. And actually, on November 7th, we have an $82,000 CD maturing, $82,383, which would come along right in time to where we would be able to purchase that with money that we have. And I mean, it's funds and CDs that we've been saving away for something to use in a type of case like this.
Do we know, I mean, the appraisals don't come in at 108,000? Do we, I mean, even though we have 2 appraisals, can we go above what the appraisals are?
No, we're limited to the average of the 2 appraisals. That is our maximum.
The average of the 2?
Yes, and we cannot go
Okay.
above that legally. But around $8,000 an acre is pretty standard in that Brown County area. A lot of that stuff is going for 10,000 plus. So I think we should be in that range, and if we're close to it, hopefully they would work with us, knowing that they're helping us out. But for now, what I would do is I would recommend that we move forward with the 2 appraisals for the cost of $1,250, just so we can see what those come back at, see if it's even the potential.
I'll make that motion.
If those do come back in time and it's in that range and they're willing to work with us, we could resolve in October to purchase this. And it has been there's not much land in this area, and I really think we need to jump on this.
So Michael, you just made this motion?
To allow Adam the $1,250 to order the 2 appraisals for the property in question.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded.
Oh, Les seconded.
Les did, thank you.
Can I say also that if we proceed with this though, I'd really kind of like to see what the total cost looks like, because you're talking about
Sure.
side prep fees and things like
Oh,
that.
sure,
Where's all
sure.
this gonna come from? And are we gonna eventually recoup it in this 1.2 million? Or, I think we need to kind of have the financial plan. I know the money's in the bank, but.
Yeah, and it will cost some money for a site prep. I believe with our north, we spent about $60,000 to develop the Possum Trot site plan. A lot of that, though, was not even the engineering or the Rule 5, what they call stormwater management plan. A lot of that was actually tree removal, groundwork, labor with our current staff. So I think actually just having the land in our pocket is a huge thing moving forward. But I believe the site prep will be a lot less than that because we're not having to go in and clear trees. A lot of that work we could potentially do in-house. I think the engineering portion for Possum Trot was right around $15,000 for the site plan.
Well, and Frank mentioned some offset on selling timber and things like that to offset. But anyway, just when you
Yeah.
come to us,
Down-
have
down the
that,
road, certainly.
don't say what you just said, but
Yeah.
have it a little more specific.
This site has always been in the Shrewsbury report, and yes, all of this purchase cost and all that would come out of the bond for the 2020, 2021 cycle, and then essentially put the money back in the CDs. It's not intended to draw from the general fund, it's intended to eventually all come out of the bond.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and
Thank you.
seconded that we allow the $1,250 for the 2 appraisals. Is there any other discussion or question on that? One quick note, you did check with Angela, it's gonna look a little backwards. Explain to them what you explained to me about the.
So we do have to,
It's legal.
in the resolution, we have to appoint the appraisers and the appraisals, have to appoint the appraisers. So essentially, they're doing their work prior to being appointed, but she said that, she's like, it's not gonna matter in the grand scheme of things, as long as in that resolution,
It says
we
we appointed.
appoint them and then have the
It's
two,
just kind of a
the two
retroactive thing, so
appraisals, yeah.
don't look looks
So I was hoping we'd have to wait another month to get a resolution, and she said there would not be an issue with that. They've just essentially done the work before they were.
actually officially appointed.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Frank, again, for bringing this to our attention, and for you, for going over. went to
Thank
look
you.
at it.
We had a very interesting time.
Okay, that brings us to the 2020 board meeting, dates discussion. Have you all glanced at those dates? I didn't see any red flags, like nothing on Christmas, nothing on, yeah. Everything looked
I
okay
think
to
they
me.
look fine.
It looks fine.
Okay,
We've
you-
already got them on our calendar.
I've got to work a couple of days, but I think I got to ride.
Oh, yeah, you might.
I don't get to go anywhere, so I'm always available.
All right, Beth, everything okay by you in those dates, or as far as you know?
I'm sorry, I was looking at that. I wasn't paying attention.
On the meeting
On
dates
the
for
meeting dates for
2020.
2020,
Oh,
did you have a chance to glance?
yeah, yeah.
Well, we try to just keep with this year.
Yeah, it's kind of like.
The fourth Thursday, except for the summer meetings, and
Finally,
Saturday,
yeah.
fall,
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
We're all
Third
good.
one's ahead.
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, I guess we don't really need a resolution on that, do we?
We'll resolve that next month. This is
Next
just for
time? Okay,
discussion.
Just discussion.
Can I talk about that since we don't have to vote on it?
Sure.
Has there been any discussion about going back to the Boys and Girls Club? What a nice facility that is, and it's closer to the lake and
So instead of here?
well, it's just a thought.
Okay.
And
We vote on that?
I wouldn't have any problem.
over here.
I think the reason,
You mean in
in
the
the very
summer?
beginning,
I
remember?
mean, just in the
I think all the
summer?
time.
Wait,
Oh, I
one
wouldn't
at
like
a
that.
time, one at a time here. Go
We
ahead.
would-
Well, God, you gotta walk to the bathroom, like, they don't even have.
No,
girls'
there's
bathrooms.
actually a bathroom in that
It was
building.
being
Deb.
repaired or something.
It was just under construction.
We're not
I
parking,
just
is
think
that?
for weather.
That
things
was,
like
when
that,
we
it's
first
just-
talked about this, it was Lance Eberly who said that wintertime parking out there can be tricky.
Right.
Because
If it's,
all on a
yes,
slope.
you're on a
Yeah.
hill and they may
goes
not
into the
plow
lake.
it right away.
Goes into the
Uh,
lake.
But otherwise, I agree, I like that facility.
I think we could probably get a couple out of them. I don't think they would say that we could have everyone there. And I believe they're getting a little bit more hesitant because about a week after we were there, it just got broken into and somebody took all the paint and they're doing work in the bathroom and just threw paint everywhere and destroyed the wood floor. And so I think they're a little bit hesitant of having people.
For me, rather selfishly, I always come from Indianapolis, and I know Michael Klitzing does too. I won't speak for him, but it's just like, I think the facility's nice. It's convenient to get to, and we do the summer ones at the lake, so
Well-
I would vote we stick with it, but.
So,
or the
so not to
discussion.
make this a really long conversation, but I will.
Okay.
What if we, and I think Laura's talked about this before, we could continue to have our meetings, this meeting could be in the shelter house right now.
Absolutely.
True.
Yes,
No
yes.
brainer.
And much easier.
And May usually could be in the shelter house.
Just bring
So-
your sweatshirts.
Yeah,
We could.
but if maybe we ask Boys and Girls Club if we could have the September meeting and the May meeting, and then if it's really, really blastingly hot, to use the facility. But one of the things that we lost when we came here, and, is
The freeholders.
we
coming
don't,
there.
not as many freeholders typically come. And with all the information that we have to communicate to people and educate people about it, I'm kind of back at, maybe we need to
I'd
be
be fine with
someplace.
that May and September. I mean, that kind of.
Compromise, yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
And this is
And
just
just
a
extend
date,
the,
so we can talk with them.
Is there any merit into going back to the senior citizen center?
No, we're not going.
They will not let us
Yeah.
back.
I've
We've
talked about
we've gone 2 years with no brawls in the parking lot. I mean, that ought to help.
Should be time for good behavior.
One of the things
I
that,
haven't asked them if we could have a strategic planning or lake health meetings there in May or.
Really?
No.
Really? So like, who's in charge of that?
the thing I hate about.
Trustee,
Yeah.
I've never seen it,
the
so I.
township
I
trustee,
wouldn't know.
Benton Township trustee.
Oh.
But I haven't heard good things about it.
It's, well, and the thing that I hate most, and not that every meeting we need this, but they don't have any kind of technology there.
Yeah.
So if we're doing any kind of a presentation, it's not a great facility.
That's why I like this, in case we do have
Yes.
PowerPoints or when we have
That's
people
why I
coming
like
on.
And that's the downside of the shelter house though too. There's not much there. Plus, it's really hard to hear, I think.
It is.
But at the
I
Boys and Girls
agree.
Club, they do have, they don't have this.
Yeah.
But we could more easily set up technology there.
Well, maybe we should just be meeting at the shelter house on a picnic day.
I feel like I started all this, and saw that I was
That's fine, I like
having
that. Well, what I can do, so what date should I, to see how many, or what dates? we
See
can
if
work
they would
on?
do September and May.
Just September, May.
All right.
At where now?
At the Boys and Girls
The
Club.
Boys and Girls Club,
But if
instead
we-
of coming to
Okay,
Bloomington.
but if we do that, are we going to Saturday then instead of, I mean, the whole point is getting
Oh.
more Lake residents there, and if we're doing it on Thursday night, it's not gonna make a difference.
I vote that we don't have more Saturday meetings.
Well, then, I think we should stay here. I mean, because that's.
Well,
That's
it
the
only-
other,
That, it only benefits
It's a
Lake
two-
residents if it's on a Saturday.
It's a two-pronged problem.
And I'm not in favor of more Saturdays either, because I
Yeah, you
have them.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough on the weekends to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
both of us not available on a Saturday.
And I'd say stick with the schedule we've got. Like-
Yeah, I'm not trying to change the schedule, I was just trying to.
No, I know, but I mean, locations.
I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see
I'm
what
good-
they-
I'm good with the way we've been doing it.
Okay. See what's even possible, Adam?
Yeah, I'll do that.
And tell them we're just throwing things around right now, and then
Yeah.
come back to us and tell us what.
I would definitely support all the summer ones at Boys and Girls except for the picnic. I like that space. I'll talk with them and we'll get back. But as far as the dates,
Because we
those
could
look good.
rent.
Dates are good.
Dates are good.
dates are good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. It's your turn, Mary Jane. I know you're just jumping at the bit.
Well,
Strategic
and
plan
I've gotten
committee
really
update.
good at this. I'm gonna put it right back on Adam here in a second. And then on Kathy, I think. The Strategic Planning Committee met on Friday, September 6th. And one of the first things we talked about was the East Eidolon maintenance line. Adam, do you want to kind of bring everybody up to date on what you've requested from DNR and?
Yeah, so I did, that kind of all started, we had Freeholder in that area that was upset with the current maintenance line, and requested that we move it. I started talking with DNR, where our maintenance line is, after we switched it in 2016, that's what's permitted, and DNR tells us where we can and cannot spray emergent vegetation. So what they're wanting to do in that area is push the vegetation line back. I'm for that to a certain extent. What we need to do is, if we're going to push that vegetation line back very much, we need to have it in the plan to dredge that area, eventually have it on the docket. You don't want to take away the stabilizing structures too much without having a plan there. But we're also limited to where we'd be able to hydraulically dredge by that maintenance line, because where that maintenance line is, then it's an emergent wetland there, which you can't do in wetlands. So we're talking with the DNR currently about pushing back the maintenance line in the northern portion, opening up some more area there. And the benefits would be some more open water. Currently it's not usable, but it would allow us a greater area for dredging once we get to that position. Now, just because we move that maintenance line back doesn't mean we necessarily have to spray all of that currently, but it gives us the option to do that. So that conversation has been ongoing. Any potential changes to the maintenance line will have to come to the board
Right.
for approval at all. And then to move forward with that, if we're talking about October, bringing the modified lines for discussion. And then we have to wait until after January 1st to apply for our treatment permit, which would either approve or deny the changes. Now that is up to DNR. I think since we are planning to dredge there and reclaim some of that area, they will be in favor of it. But if for some reason DNR says no, then we're limited in our capacity to where the current maintenance line is.
So you had mentioned earlier that we would open up some of that delta stuff, some of those old channels as part
Yes.
of the, so how would that affect this maintenance line?
Well, I think when we open up some of the channels, what we can't do is actually break all the way through. What we can do is open up the channels near Dorothy Lane and then heading into the wetland there, but we wouldn't want to actually open up these channels all the way into the northern bay right there, else you can just funneling dirt into that area. And then once we start doing the dredging priorities for next year, and one of my recommendations is going to be that we actually go into Dorothy Lane as one of the priorities, as they're the only channel that has never been touched by LLC dredging, I believe, or one of the only remaining ones. And that also goes in line with us opening up that creek channel right there. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Les.
Well, I was just, I mean, since you were talking about
Yeah.
opening those up, but, and that was the recommendation of these folks that we not open them all the way, that the idea is what, that would be sort of the catch thing?
Yeah, they said they agreed with Shrewsbury that opening up those channels and diverting water through the wetland should help increase the amount of capture that we're getting in the wetland. But we want to keep the wetland intact. We don't want to cut through it, because if you don't have a berm, then there's kind of pipeline in the
Okay,
side.
well, I just want to make sure this maintenance line movement didn't.
Yeah, no,
put
that would not impact. It's probably, as our crow flies, about a quarter mile
Oh, okay.
west of any of the channels that we do.
Okay.
That it?
I think so. What's this? Oh, yeah, this brought up.
Do that.
Yeah, we
I don't know
were
if
talking-
now's the time, but I'm like, was I just not paying attention to you?
Oh,
Or did
no,
you
I
not
can't-
talk about
I didn't
it?
hear what you said, Debbie.
The trailer park. He meant to cover that in his manager's report.
Oh, okay, we'll go back.
Okay.
I think that real quick. So we have some updates. One of the ongoing E. coli issues has been the Nob Hill Trailer Park near the marina. I actually met there about a week ago with the State Department of Health and Monroe County Department of Health. They were going back and forth historically in the past. They couldn't decide if it was a trailer park or a campground. They're calling it a campground. So Monroe County is actually trying to, one, get them to operate in a campground without a campground permit. Secondly, they can't find the owner or get a hold of them because there's like 3 shell companies, and it eventually goes through a management company in
They have new
Indianapolis.
asphalt.
And so then what they're
Right,
looking
I
at.
knew that.
They did what?
You said that. They have new asphalt, like.
Yeah, I know. And then so what they're talking about doing now is going to the
Easier to
local
pull the
circuit
trailers
court
out.
and actually getting an injunction to just completely shut off water to the entire trailer park to force them to do something. So that's potentially coming in the future. They're just gonna shut off water to force them to do something. And then that's gonna have to be some type of localized treatment plan. But they're getting ready to come down on them pretty hard, and both of them are very upset because they've been ignored for multiple years. So I think that's the next move they're planning is just completely shutting off water, and then kind of, as they call it, kicking the hive.
Are they like permitted as a campground?
No,
or
they're
are the
not. That's
owners
why it
just
comes-
It started
saying they
at
want to
$1,200
be?
a year, and now the guy's come in, bought it, and he's getting like 4,000 a property, and that's why he put the asphalt in, but nobody knows who the hell he is.
Yeah, and so we have the name. We're kind of sleuthing around and trying to help them find where the companies are out of. But so what they're going to do and what they can do is take care of it from this side. If you shut off water, it's going to force the owner to come and deal with it. So I think they're getting to the point where they're going to be moving in a pretty big way.
I'm glad there's finally some movement on that.
The owner's in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wait, we're still on.
So we also discussed the sediment transport study results.
I'm sorry, but there was a letter sent, okay.
Yes, that, the freeholder that
On the
Adam
outlaw.
mentioned
Okay.
And we'll be
sent a
sending that
letter.
to the-
Okay.
But it
thank you.
We'll be sending
We
that
will.
out to
Alright.
you, and we will bring this back in October for a new proposed line to be.
Okay, thank you.
And I will fill you in email next week.
All right, thank you.
All right? This is one of my neighbors, by the way, and Rex is here too, and lives in an area impacted by this more Lotus visual than they would like to have, and that's kind of what it boils down to.
Okay, I think I knew who it is, I'm just
Okay.
looking, thank you.
Mhm.
So we also discussed the sediment transport study, and Adam has given us that update and discussion about purchasing land as a disposal site. The third thing we talked about is now very much past tense. It was the final preparation for the September 14th home tour by boat and lemonade fundraiser. And those of us who were there on September 14th can attest to the fact that it appears to have been a roaring success again, thanks to Kathy McClure and Ann Roboleski and a whole bunch of people. Some of you are out sitting here this evening. And I'm going to ask Kathy to take a couple minutes and give us the results.
Sure.
Thank you.
We can share if you like. That's all right. I have time for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
Anybody back here want one?
Thank you.
All right, so, yes, I think we were successful. We had a total, when you have silent auction sales, we made $5,129 with our silent auctions. We made $3,736 in sponsorships and ads. Our ticket sales were $2,805, and then we had a little bit from snacks and games. The food is $600, but that comes out in the expenses later because basically we treated it sort of like catering, and then he charged up, we sold tickets, and then we paid him the difference, but he did give us a $60, he gave us a 10% back as a donation to the fund. Our expenses this time were $2,174.69. That's the ones up from the day on. We bought some booties for $50 before that, but that was not counted in this. But that included the little frames, picture frames for the auction, signs and book stands. We bought some walkie-talkies. We bought 6 that now belong to the Lemonade Committee. Frank has more, and we used those in the boats. Each of the docks for the stops had a walkie-talkie, and each of the boat drivers had one, and we had one at base, and Frank had one, and they worked fantastically. That was a great solution. Much better than trying to make cell phones work. So the communication was good. Frank did an amazing job of organizing all of our wonderful boat drivers, and very positive comments from everybody on that. We also, with that, we paid for the food and the bands. We had 2 different bands, and we paid for those. So that's all counted in that expenses. So our profit, because we took in $12,520, our profit was $10,345 and 31 cents. Better than last year, huh? So we have currently are ready to send. I talked to the the Brown County Community Foundation, and we focused on them this time because last time we focused on Monroe County. And so we asked people that wrote checks to write them to the Brown County. So I have $4,343 worth of checks to mail to them. And then we also have close to $1,000 to send to Bloomington. And that's partly because Brown County is very particular. If it doesn't say Brown County Community Foundation, they won't take it. Bloomington is like, yeah, we got a stamp, whatever. So if people wrote it to the Link Lemonade, Lemonade Enhancement Fund or whatever, they're like, yeah, we just stamp over the top.
Right.
So that's part of why those are from there. We did have a couple people that live in Bloomington that made their checks out to the Community Foundation in Bloomington, but so that's the checks that we received in. We sold 83 home tour tickets, which was down a little from last year, actually. Who knows why, but it was. 63 tasting tickets, and that was based on what we know. I think there was a little more than that because people came back because they could use 5 tickets to buy a glass of wine, and they came back and bought more tickets, and we didn't get all of those necessarily recorded, but of the pre-registration, and I went through all the credit card stuff.
If that number's correct, then I bought
just
like
you
a
and me.
third of them.
Well, yes, that's people, that's not necessarily number of tickets. That's not
That
the
was the
number
number
of
of
tickets.
people,
That's the number
right.
of people that bought
'Cause
tickets.
I-
Okay,
Not the
that makes
number
me
of
feel a lot
tickets.
better.
Otherwise, she had 6. Yeah, no, that's the number of people that bought
Kathy,
tickets.
so then when we gave the tickets for the tasting, then did we reimburse?
No,
that?
they
Okay.
donated that.
They just donated.
So they
it all.
donate that alcohol, and they were allowed to.
Then they sold bottles.
They sold
yeah.
bottles of wine,
Okay.
cases of wine.
Awesome.
And Big Woods sold bottles of rum, and
Mhm.
I think they may have sold some just beer bottles, but this is something that,
Sure.
it's a promotion for them.
Yeah.
But they're very kind to come out, and
Yeah.
so they all did make some money, right? Yeah, I think they all did. And we had 709 auction items, which is about a lot more than last year.
Sure.
That's a lot.
25 or 30 more than last year. And we had 21 sponsors and advertisers, also up from last year. So, and our auction stuff came in, some at the last minute. We had some great stuff that came in at the end, the canoe and driveway repairs and water skis and all that was on the last day. So all those things were terrific. I called yesterday and talked to the Brown County Community Foundation, and the fund balance in that, our Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund, was $3,290. So with those checks that we are sending, the $4,343, their projected balance, which hasn't officially been recorded yet, $7,633 in the Brown County Fund, and then the Monroe County Fund, with what was in there before, with what the checks that we're sending, $7,286.08. So the question now is, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of the volunteers and the amazing job getting people to volunteer. We are joined at the hip for about 2 months. I just need her on speed dial because I talk to her about 3 times a day.
You do know she threatens people, she does threaten
She's
people, but
awesome
she gets
at
it done.
that. And Frank did great with the boat drivers, and we have very willing people. The houses, everything so far was very glowing reports. So maybe they just didn't want to tell me something negative, but everything I heard, you were a homeowner, you can tell us if it was good.
Oh, I thought it was really smooth, well run. We had no problem with the people coming in. It was well managed because we had groups we could take. You know what I mean? We weren't overwhelmed. So, and I met a lot of nice people on the lake I never met before.
Yeah, that's
That was
the
a
cool
cool
thing
part.
about that.
That's
I've heard
what,
that.
that's a nice
A lot
thing.
of people commented about that, and that's
Absolutely.
part of that community building that we did,
Yeah.
which was awesome. We're all kind of getting to know
Funny,
each other.
Smiley, that's not what he said at Frenchie's. What is it?
He was drunk at French. The truth came out.
It was fun, and we've already had some people that say, hey, next year I will have my house up. So we're hoping that if we do it again, that will be the case.
I'll give you another hand.
And to Ann as well.
Yeah, we definitely are a team. It was
All the boat drivers are in for next year.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had eight
That's
boat
great.
drivers.
Yeah.
When do we get our radios?
You do not
You
get
don't
radio.
get a radio.
Oh,
They're not to keep, Mike.
oh.
So the one question that I have is, we have about $5,000, a little over $5,000 that was in the account from PayPal, from check, cash, things like that. So now the question is, what do we do with that $5,000? We have some reserve.
Put your hand down, Steve.
Next time, but, so we can put it into one of the two funds. We could split it between the two. We could say, okay, if you want to spend it on something, you can tell us that before we. If we want to spend money out of the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund, now that we've hit that $5,000 base limit, the board, you guys, can go to them and make a proposal and say, hey, we want to build a playground. And if we want to build a program, we need X number of dollars. We want to withdraw that from our account. It's my understanding that we have to keep the $5,000 in there. But anything above that could be withdrawn for a project at the lake if we chose to do so. So we need to know, what should we do with this other?
Is
side?
it
So
like a lemonade checking account? Is that where it is?
Yeah, we
Yes.
have a checking
Their-
account.
their-
and the
their
PayPal,
committee
because that's
has
how
a
we
checking
can-
account.
That's how we can take in the money.
So here's my question. In addition to this $5,000, do you guys have some operating capital?
Yes.
That you have?
Yes, yeah, we kept enough, based on our 2 years of experience now, roughly $1,500 per the two events. So if we keep that $3,000 in the checking account, then that kind of covers.
So the balance in the checking account now is what? Then you're saying it's more like 8,000?
That's
Like
total
you've got
that we own,
three
yeah, yeah.
besides this.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't need it, you don't need this $5,000
This
to
5,000
fund an
is above and
event.
beyond, because we
Okay.
have
Okay.
that other
All right.
withheld, and that's after the expenses.
But you could also leave that money in there.
No,
We could,
there's
but
no
I-
need
There's no
to.
need.
I feel
They
like-
already had 3,000 in a separate account for working capital.
Yeah,
So I
then
think the 5 ought to go in those community foundation.
So then the
accounts.
question is, do we put it, which one do we put it? Do we split
Oh,
it
yes,
evenly? Do we
that's
put it all in one?
I'd even them up.
Split them between?
I would vote to even them up,
Yeah, you're at 72.
because you're almost,
They're about even
76,
now.
Yep.
they're
One
almost
has
even now.
7,600, the other one has 7,000, roughly
Almost
300.
put them both at
less.
10 grand.
Now, I thought the
Yeah.
foundation though, aren't they supposed to, or can't we apply for like grants from them?
Yeah,
That's
you
what,
can.
that's what Kathy was just saying.
That's what
that
you
we
just
could.
So I mean, it's more than just what, you know, like if we wanted 5 grand, we could ask for more.
No,
Because-
No.
No, it's
no,
not-
this is our fund. If we don't have the money in the fund,
Can't get it.
we can't get it from someplace
It's
else.
not a granting organization like that. They're basically taking our money and investing it. The reason that we have this fund is so that people can donate and get a tax exemption. It's a 501c3.
Okay.
And it-
See,
and-
I thought they had grant money available.
No.
To my knowledge, no.
So you can't take this money and reinvest it like in a shelter house and improve
Well, that's
something?
what it is for.
That's
We can if we decide to do that.
That's what it is for, but the process is that all we, Ann and I and our lemonade committee is raising the money and passing
And it
it on
goes
to
to the
them.
com-
So then what happens is if you guys want a
take it.
playground or a dock or whatever, the board then goes to the Brown
I got
County Community
Right.
Foundation
And
or
applies
the
for it.
And
Bloomington
we
Community
say we
Foundation
want
and
some
says,
of our
"Hey,
money
we have this project,
for this
it's gonna
mission."
cost $5,000, we need to withdraw that
And
from.
it's
Right.
it's not a complicated
No.
process to get it back. You just have to
It's
have,
not-
you have to have a
it's-
plan, and it
it's-
has to go to their board, and they say yea or nay.
Right.
And if it's for the betterment of the lake, it's always, it's always.
Right,
yes.
that's,
Right.
right.
So I would say we need we'll make a motion to have you use the 5,000.
21.
Whatever.
Just put it in the
To-
fund.
to-
Yeah.
Equalize the fund. I
Equalize
don't even
the
know if you
funds.
You
need
don't
a
even-
motion for that, but that, I
I'm
just
not-
wanted guidance on what we
Sure.
should do with that.
Well, yeah, I think you should take that 5,000, figure out what this difference is,
That's what we just
$300,
said.
and then split the rest of it, and then they'll both.
what we
Then
just said,
Then
Debbie.
they'll both exactly be equal.
Right.
Okay, make
Is that-
They'll be off by some cents.
Yeah.
Okay, all
Pretty
right, I
close
can
to
do that.
even.
But the good news, I think, in all of this is before we started, there was $0 in those accounts.
Yes, no,
And in 2
this
years,
is-
not only have we funded them, but we've doubled that, so I think
Yeah.
that's exciting.
No,
Very
that's
good.
great.
Well,
So
that's
we'll
a-
start seeing non-round numbers on that Brown County fund now,
Right.
because
Right.
it's gonna start earning.
Right.
That is great, but I did want to ask a question though. The insurance that we had to pay for the day is not considered in that $2,000, right? It's on our side of the.
That was
No,
on your
we
side, so
donate-
I
we
did
voted
not
to
put that in
donate
as
that.
expense.
About
670. 670.
Because I didn't take
that.
that out of
No,
our
right.
operating capital.
Right.
We voted as a board to pay for
We
that.
voted
Right.
to do that.
last-
Right.
The only thing that's not on this are the $50 worth of booties, which we paid for
And the
before with
popcorn.
money, and the popcorn, but,
So 80.
yes. But that was
$50.
from money that was already in there from before.
I think it's a job
It was
well
a
done.
nice
Yes.
amount,
Thank you.
man. It was great.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful. Thank you.
It was
Everything.
fun. We're in some ways glad it's over.
I'm sure.
It's a lot of work. but,
Did you get your weekend off, Ann?
I did,
Good.
and I told people no. People asked me to help them with stuff, and I told them no.
Good for
Good.
you.
I'm not very good at that.
Well, many
But
thanks again.
Thank you all for your support. because
We had a good time.
I think it's a good,
It was fun.
good event to
I'm glad
bring
you had a good
everybody
time, because we're
together.
gonna ask you to help us
It's
next.
because I bought all those drink
I'm getting better
tickets.
at it.
That's why you had such a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And from the expense side, we now have over 100 picture frames, have 100 little
Right.
stands and
To rebuy.
that kind of thing.
So
and
we don't have to
walkie-talkies, so
purchase
in-
that again.
Unless we get another 100 auction items, then we'll have more, we have to find space.
And now we have to expand
But, you
your
know,
garage.
that was the only reason.
We
why
don't
we
need
had
a
to buy
motion
more
or
of those.
anything for
No.
this, right?
I don't think we do. We could.
I think we're good.
I did the math there for you, Kathy, if you
Oh.
want it.
Good, you got an accountant.
I think you just.
Well, thanks again.
Yeah, I
ladies.
think that's
It
what
was
you're
a
gonna
smash
split.
success.
I guess Monroe County will get that plus one.
Thank
Thank you.
Is,
Do you have enough?
so that was the extent of the last SPC meeting. The next SPC meeting is Friday, October 11th at 3:30 at the office. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to public comment. Anybody have something to add? Frank? How did
Somehow
know?
I knew Frank had public
He's got a
comment.
big
I have
poster.
lots of things to talk about. For public comment, we discussed at our last board meeting, the Lake Lemon Environmental Cooperative, Inc., in its formulation. There was discussion that we would present to you a white paper prior to today. That's not quite prepared yet. So that piece of the discussion I'd like to table until next month's meeting. The intent of that part of the discussion is to get a letter of support from the board for this sewer initiative, which is being set up as a 501c3 through the IU School of Law. That will ideally be completed by the end of this calendar year. It is already established by the state of Indiana as a business operating entity. We have met once with the CBU Planning and Projects Board, which is a subgroup of the CBU itself, and with the CBU. Your issue, Adam, and my second piece of this is the agenda for that same planning group next week, Monday. And they have for me, I've already seen the draft of the letter of intent that they will be giving us to lease roughly 4 acres of land in Little Africa for our project Area A plant that we have. It'll be a 50-year lease for $1. Second right of purchase for the property. You, the board, are the first right of purchase of the lake as a whole under the Conservancy District lease that you have. So somewhere along the way, my group and your group, I would like to coordinate so you don't own my wastewater treatment plant.
I thought it was a nonprofit.
Holy moly.
Could we make money?
I have to be very serious, folks, but because we cannot create a wastewater treatment plant and have someone go through and convert to the wastewater treatment plant where we have the jeopardy of somebody else owning it and then shutting it down, and then 85 homes are gonna lose their ability to be housed. So I take this very seriously. Hours. So it's a very careful initiative that has to be legally done exactly in a very proper way. So we have tremendous support from the city of Bloomington, wants us to do others of these projects around the lake to protect the lake and potentially as the backup solution to the Knob Hill problem by having a separate project area D or E or F around the lake as we go through. What I would like today is confirmation that we can still use the shelter house on October 12th. And second, that we would be able to utilize Kathy's setup through the constant contact for us to be able to send out an announcement to our communication peer review group, which is Pam and Mary Jane, of the announcement, so that could be publicly sent out to all the freeholders and everyone else that's on that list, so that, because this is an open public meeting for everyone to learn about the project and understand what we're doing. So those are my 2 requests for today. If we can continue along with that process that we began the discussion last month, and we'll table the piece. I should have the white paper this coming week that I'll then forward on to Adam so you can eventually include it in your board packets for next month's meeting.
I have no problem with those 2 items. Anybody else?
The shelter rental we motioned on last month, so that's
Yeah,
good to
that's
go. We
done.
have that in the docket. As far as the announcement, just go ahead and send me the verbiage that you want, and then I'll send that out through constant contact to everybody.
What time is that meeting on October the 12th?
Probably 11 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
Thanks, Frank.
One thing I would suggest, and this isn't the SPC meeting, but if we wanted to include a story about this in the next newsletter, I think that makes a lot of sense, because the more people know about what you're doing, the more momentum we may be able to build to do more of these types of projects. So
That was one of my topics when I was trying to find out if anyone else has anything else they would like in the next newsletter.
Do you want an educational thing on wake boats, or do you want to do that in the spring?
I would do that in the spring.
I would, well, if you, I'd do it now and then I'd do it again, because people don't learn the first
With
time.
repetition. Yeah, I guess I
So
could do
it's
that.
gonna be like the rules is what you're gonna put in there? Or what's the nature of the article on these? I don't know. but it's-
I know.
Yeah, I don't know what you want to put in there.
You can-
Well,
you
I
can
think,
about that.
I would see it in, maybe it's a softer piece at this point, and it's,
This is
did
how
you
highways
know,
affect the shore.
this is what happens when you're
Yeah, I would
driving
say
your wake boat.
rules.
I mean, to me, maybe it's more, maybe it's a little bit more about erosion and these things
Yeah.
causing
Yeah.
it, and so you gotta stay
That's
200
what I
feet, more
said.
like the rules, if you
Yeah,
will.
I like that.
You know.
I may have a presentation, an article from our last Indiana Lakes Management Society conference that dealt with this. And I will go back and look through my
Yeah.
PDFs of that,
Okay.
and maybe I can get you a little blurb that talks about kind of their research and impact on erosion from different activities.
I mean, we can remind everybody, but a lot of people are gonna have their boats off the lake pretty soon.
Well, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about the way people actually assimilate information
Yeah.
through
Plant
spaced,
the
A couple
seed.
times for
Gotcha.
that.
plant the seed and then
Sure.
repeat,
Follow
repeat,
it in the
repeat.
spring.
Yeah, beat them over the head. All right, your agenda is wrong, the
The
next.
one on, I don't know what happened, the one online is correct.
Yeah,
This is
the
an old
next-
version that
it's
got
okay.
printed off, I
The
apologize.
next meeting will be right back here, Thursday, October 24th, at 6 o'clock, and that will be our official budget adoption and board meeting. I have no other business to come before the board. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 7:29.
That?
Good.
Thank you guys for coming.
I know we're out of point, but we-
Laura.
We spoke with Jeremy Boshiers, who's written the book, The Bridges of
Oh,
Monroe
yes.
County. He's a fascinating guy. He knows all about history around the lake. He has all these cool pictures of the lake before it was a lake. And he talked about, so we're gonna do some articles, but